Hallo und willkommen, ich bin Meister Lehnsherr and you're watching Get Germanized, Top 10 German Serial Killers, Part 2.
All on board, what should I do?
Ah, ich weiß.
Get Germanized.
If you haven't watched Part 1 yet, click here or find the link to it in the video description. Let's get started. Lasst uns anfangen. On place number 5, Rudolf Pleil, der Todmacher, the Deadmaker. Rudolf Pleil, aka der Todmacher, killed his victims in the years from 1946 to 1947. At the age of 9, Pleil had to support his family financially by smuggling people into Germany and was arrested for this multiple times. He often missed school since he had to earn money for his sister and unemployed parents. His brother died young and his sister was forcefully sterilized by the Nazis because of her epilepsy. Sometimes he offered his services as a guide for crossing borders. He would then rape and kill young women and sometimes even decapitate them afterwards. He was arrested and sentenced to 12 years in prison for an unrelated murder of a man. During his time in prison, Pleil applied for the position of an executioner, also called Todmacher back then in Germany. In his application it said that he was good at killing people quickly and that he even had proof. He then described the location of 2 of his female victims, and that was when the police realized that he was also the murderer in the other cases. Pleil then killed himself later in his cell in 1958. The police suspected that Pleil killed up to 25 people, but was only able to find proof for 14. On place number 4, Peter Stump, aka Stubbe Peter or der Werwolf von Bedburg, the werewolf of Bedburg. He was born 1525 and according to the justice system back then took on the form of a werewolf and killed up to 16 people. He was also charged with incest, wizardry and living together with a female devil. He was found guilty October 28, 1589 and then got broken on the wheel and decapitated October 31st on Halloween. In the time between the 14 and 1700s there were over 250 recorded werewolf cases. Chances are that some of the murders were committed by an angry wolf. On the 3rd place, Friedrich Haarmann, also known as der Werwolf, der Vampir, or der Schlächter von Hannover, the werewolf, the vampire, or the butcher of Hanover. He killed his victims between 1918 and 1924 and was charged with the murder of 27 young boys and men. The trial was spectacular and was one of the first major media events in Germany. The term serial killer did not exist back then and the media and public were at a loss for words when describing his crimes. He would lure the victims back to his apartment where they would be killed by being bitten through the throat, sometimes while being sodomized. Even more shocking to the public was the involvement of the police though. Haarmann was an informant who often gave up criminals to the investigators. Until Haarmann was arrested, it never occurred to the police that he was the serial killer that they were looking for, even though some of the victims were last seen in his company. The trial lasted barely 2 weeks. Haarmann was found guilty of 24 of the 27 murders and sentenced to death. Haarmann was beheaded by the guillotine on April 15, 1925. His last words before he was beheaded were, "I repent, but I do not fear death." On the 2nd place, Stephani Letter, der Todesengel von Sonthofen, the Death Angel of Sonthofen. Stephani Letter was born September 17, 1978 in Herdecke, North Rhine-Westphalia. He's a former German nurse and serial killer who killed at least 29 patients with lethal injections. These killings occurred in Sonthofen, Bavaria between January 2003 and July 2004. He confessed to some of the murders but insisted that he acted out of sympathy for the sick patients. However, the prosecution later indicated that Letter was not the assigned nurse for some of the patients and that some of them were even in a stable condition due to be released from hospital. That November, Stephani Letter was found guilty of the murders and sentenced to life in prison. The acts have been described as Germany's largest number of killings since World War II. And on the 1st place, Karl Denke, der Kannibale von Münsterberg, the cannibal of Münsterberg. Okay, as we know now, cannibals seem to be relatively common, but Denke took this to an entire new level. He killed up to 31 people between the years of 1903 and 1924. He lived in a town in Germany known as Münsterberg. Everyone called him Papa Denke, Daddy Denke, because he was such a lovely old man and even gave to people who had less than him. He was active in the church and helped vagabonds and gave them a home and a place to sleep. When he wasn't doing any good deeds, he would sell jars of pickled pork, suspenders and belts. And because everyone loved him, nobody really cared that he regularly dumped buckets of blood outside his lawn or that his house smelled really weird. Then on December 21st in the year 1924, a coachman heard screaming from Denke's house. He ran inside to find a young man covered in blood. Denke claimed that the man was a thief who he had fended off with an axe. Following protocol, the police took Denke to the station and locked him up. Later on that evening, the police found Papa Denke in his cell, having committed suicide with a handkerchief. Now suspicious, the police decided to search his house. They found remains of human flesh, some pickled, some not, and of course human skin for those suspenders and belts. They even found a journal full of names, dates, and weights. In total, the police suspected Denke to having murdered over 40 people, but couldn't find proof for all the murders. And the worst thing is that many people in Münsterberg probably had human flesh for dinner. If you think this top 10 list should include other serial killers, or if you have any comments or criticism at all, feel free to leave them down there in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to rate this video and click the subscribe button for more videos about the German language and culture. And now it's time to have a look at some of your comments. Dafa Harathi says, Hallo, ich bin Tunesier und werde nach Deutschland gehen zu studieren. Ich werde in Düsseldorf leben. Es ist wahr, dass Düsseldorf billiger als die anderen Staaten ist. Haben Sie Tunesiere Freunde? Vielen Dank. How's my Deutsch? Your German is, I can't understand what you mean. There are some mistakes in there, but you're getting there definitely. Not bad at all. He says that he's from Tunisia. I don't really actually know what that's in English. Anyways, he wants to live in Düsseldorf and study there. He wants to know if it's true that Düsseldorf is cheaper than other cities. I actually don't know. I can't imagine that it's that much cheaper. Probably cheaper than Munich for sure, and Hamburg is probably more expensive than Düsseldorf as well. I bet there is a list somewhere on the internet. Maybe just Google which cities are the cheapest in Germany or something like that. XXX Chris 900 XXX says, I know this is unrelated, but are there feminists in Germany? Oh yeah, we get lots of feminists in Germany. History Guy 101 says, translate, careful, the water is poisonous, it might turn you into a frog, so drink sparkling water. Vorsicht, das Wasser ist giftig, es könnte dich in einen Frosch verwandeln, also trinke Mineralwasser. Vorsicht, das Wasser ist giftig, es könnte dich in einen Frosch verwandeln, also trinke Mineralwasser. That's it with the comments, guys. Vielen Dank fürs Zusehen. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to get Germanized. Goodbye and auf Wiedersehen.